Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
He's alive!
Welcome to where the weird ones are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is with Karin Wilkinson. She is the author of Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She does a lot of writing for L.A. Marzulli, and she's a wonderful person. Love her to death. Early on in today's episode, we get a little emotional. I actually end up crying, so no shame, but it is what it is. So yeah, she's got an amazing testimonial, from her abductions since she was a child to her most recent, which she hasn't been abducted as far as she knows of recently. So she has figured out how to combat it. So it's interesting. She tells all. You should definitely check out her book and get more information on her story. So yeah, it's a good one. I adore this woman very much, so I think you should all show her some love. Check out her social medias and check out her book. Other than that, I will say, so out of all the things that I have in my merch shop, I haven't really tested a lot of them out, but I did get this tumbler recently. I bought 3 of them, and I was going to give 2 of them as gifts to Jenny and Oren when I went down to Encounter Quest in North Carolina this past weekend, but they didn't come in time, but that's okay. So now I have 3 of these cups. I guess I could just probably give the other 2 to my kids. And I have kombucha in here. It's it's really sturdy feeling, they did a really good job with it. I like it a lot. It's not a plastic. Well, I mean, it might be plastic straw, but it's like, it's anyways. I put coffee in it this morning and it stayed really hot for a really long time. Like my Stanley doesn't even keep my coffee as hot as this did today. And then I got a second coffee at like 8:00, and I don't just drink my coffee fucking right away because I'm driving, and it was still hot 3 hours later, like still like kind of like felt like like I just got it, you know what I mean? So I don't know if you're interested in merch. Where the Weird Ones Are podcast.com. That's where you can find the shop, and you can get a tumbler or whatever the fuck you desire. And if you don't, that's fine too. I don't really give a care. I'm just glad that you're here hanging out with me. And while I'm on the topic, I will say that I do have a new review. It's a 5-star review, and it comes from Zoe. She says, the title of it is Let's Get Weird. So it's a long one, but it's okay. I love this. I love this woman very much as well. Adore her very much. So again, this review comes from Zoe. I believe she was episode 47, but she says, Kevin, you're an absolute gem of a human being. You really are so kind and caring, and that really comes through in the podcast and the guests you welcome. I love the way in which you give a platform for your guests to share their experiences. You're genuine and thoughtful and are able to ask questions that let them go further while keeping the natural flow of conversation. I love your show for a million reasons, and in all it brings me comfort in a way to connect to the world through you and others. I'm appreciative of your dedication and hard work you do to make this podcast happen. So I will say the first time I actually read that made me cry, and just reading that now kind of gives me goosebumps. So like I have, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, have a really hard time with compliments. And that comes from, a deep place within, my past. So there's a there's a lot of things through that, but I'm getting better. So Zoe, thank you very much for that review. That means the world to me. It absolutely melted my heart. And you're a great person as well, and I'm so happy to have become your friend, and um to get to, and I'm absolutely beside myself that I've been given the chance to get to know you. So all right, so I do have a sponsor, um and I met him at Encounter Quest this past weekend. Fucking awesome dude. Like him a lot. So I bought his garlic powder at CryptidCon, and I've been putting his garlic powder in my hot sauce. So when I met him and I realized who he was, I'm like, "Yo, I put your garlic powder in my hot sauce." And then I gave him hot sauce. I gave him a bottle of hot sauce, and he gave me a new bottle of his garlic powder, because first of all, I was out anyway. And then he also has spicy garlic, which actually is in the turkey that I am cooking downstairs. And um, this garlic powder is fucking delicious. It's raw garlic. Um, so it's his brand is Flavors of the Forest. And it's called Bigfoot Breath Raw Garlic Dust. Of course, the lighting's not that great in here today because I don't have my light. So, but you can go to flavorsforest.com and you can order some. They're fucking phenomenal. I really like it. And it's supporting a fucking fantastic person, because Nelson's a fucking awesome dude. So, uh, so yeah. Anywho, please like, follow, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. Leave a rating and review if you feel so inclined to do so. You can also leave a rating and review on the website. I'd appreciate that as well. Patreon.com, Weirdos Only. That's where you get Conspiracy Tuesdays, Story Time, my guest spots, and you get a free coffee mug, early access to the shows, $5 a month, pretty inexpensive. But that's if you want to, obviously not expected. So, just liking, following, and sharing, and subscribing, and all that shit is plenty. Actually listening is plenty for me. The rest of it, I don't really care, but it would help the show grow regardless. So, I would appreciate it, and it would mean the world to me. I feel like there's a so Encounter Quest was actually really fun. I really enjoyed it. Met a lot of people. My son had a really good time. Surprisingly, I thought he was going to be bored as fuck. But for I thought my hot sauces were going to sell out like really. Like I thought I was going to sell out of my hot sauce because I was in the South. Like what I know of, like I always thought people in the South really liked spicy, but there was people that were walking by my table and I was just like, "You like hot sauce?" And like, no. And then they'd keep walking and I was like, "Oh, okay." um but it is what it is. I still had a fantastic time. Met up with Ron Moorhead again for the second time. Phenomenal dude. Like him a lot. Lyle Blackburn I met. Alex Dietrich, I think is how you say her last name. She's a phenomenal person. Got a chance to actually conversate with her, and she's great. Like her a lot as well. I was boothed right next to Michael Thompson, the author. He was awesome. He gave me a lot of tips, tricks, and how to pull people in to the table. So the next event should go a little bit better for me, I feel like. So but other than that, I'm going to quit talking and let's get into it with Karin. Again, go check out her book and show her some love. I would appreciate that. So let's get into it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird. Get weird.
Welcome to another episode. I can't believe it. I know it's probably, I don't know what number this is going to be, but it's going to be in the hundreds, obviously. 105 is dropping tomorrow, so that's pretty cool. And I'm so excited to introduce to you Miss Karin Wilkinson. She's the author of Stolen Seed, and I've been looking forward to speaking to her mainly because she was on two of my favorite podcasts, The Confessionals and Tinfoil Hat. Tinfoil Hat I listen to religiously. Love those guys, and would love to get. I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking.
Yep.
Have been super looking forward to having Karin on ever since we spoke. So, Karin, if you don't mind saying hi to everybody and let them know a little bit about yourself.
Great. Hi. Yes, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. Thank you. Excited and honored to be on your show. Um, it's such a privilege. Yes, I am the author of the book Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. That is available exclusively at lamarzulli.net. And I also write for LA Marzulli's newsletter. And yeah, I really have enjoyed just all the wonderful people I've gotten to meet and talk to recently. Like you said, being on Tinfoil Hat and The Confessionals, those were just both two amazing shows. The nicest people in the world. You know, I've got to meet so many new people, and especially you, Kevin. You know, I think we're going to be friends for a long time. We have a lot of friends in common, like Tommy, and so yeah, it just really is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it because if not for people like you, I would just be sitting here talking to myself. Not that I wouldn't do it. I just don't know if it'd be as entertaining.
No, yeah, I don't think I would be as interesting if I didn't have someone ask me some questions. Like, I don't know
But
what to say.
right. But yes, everybody, she was also on Tommy's podcast, Let's Get Freaky. I shout out Tommy every chance that I get. Everybody knows this.
Oh yeah,
So
he's a great friend,
um,
lifelong friend.
Absolutely. Him and I have a bit of a bromance. So,
I love it.
yeah, we just recorded a bromance episode. So,
Oh, I
not
cannot
too long
wait.
ago.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. Oh, I will
we
definitely
just
check
talk
that out.
about good things that we like about each other.
Oh, that's great. Well, we need to lift each other up and encourage each other. And, we don't get enough of that, especially in this business. I mean, I get a
Absolutely.
lot of, I get my fair share of people who have a lot of criticism about the subject, when it comes
Oh my
to,
goodness.
the supernatural and UFOs and UIPs and aliens and that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
it's unfortunate, but for most people, they've been incredibly receptive and kind and loving and understanding. And the one thing that has surprised me the most about doing this and sharing this, my story, my history in this book, is that I have met hundreds upon hundreds of people who have had the same or similar experiences and who are
Yeah.
just so happy to have someone to share with, someone to talk to, someone who can say, I know, oh my gosh, you understand what I've been through. I didn't think anyone would ever understand, but once I heard you talking about it, finally I knew someone understood what I went through. And for me, that is the best part of this, because there's hope in the fact that, it's not a fun situation to be in. It's terrifying, it's horrifying, and it can lead to a very desperate and depressing life and lifestyle. But when you know there's hope and you know you're not alone and you understand how to stop it, then you are left with a sense of relief that is just beyond measure. And I'm just so happy to hear so many people finding freedom from this scenario where they're being taken against their will.
Hmm.
And they can't talk to anyone about it because they don't want anyone to think that they're crazy. I mean, I'm here to say, hey, you're not crazy. There's too many of us that this is happening to. And we're not comparing notes. We're getting together and we all have the same story.
Hmm.
And we all have seen the same types of things and experienced the same types of things. And that's too many people with too much in common for this to be the stuff of nightmares or craziness or hallucinations. It's real. And we have the physical scars and emotional scars to prove it. So, for anyone out there listening who has been through it, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but you don't have to go through it anymore. And for anyone who's skeptical, I just encourage you to approach it with an open mind and know that just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean it's not real. And I'm glad that it hasn't happened to you, because it's a terrible, terrible thing to have to live through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the things that I like to touch on too with the
Mhm.
show is the mental health aspect of, these experiences, because they do make you feel like you're crazy
Oh, yeah.
and you don't want to talk to anybody, and then you isolate yourself, and then it can lead you down this long, dark, depressing road.
Right.
And, some of us don't make it off of that road.
No,
Sometimes
no.
it ends for us.
Yeah, I've heard too many stories of people who weren't able to hold down jobs or homeless or had just mental issues beyond what they felt like they could deal with because
Hmm.
there was just no support. There's no
Right.
support system in place for this in our society. You can identify as anything you want. You can identify as a dolphin if you want and find a support system. But if you admit that you're someone who's been abducted by non-human alien entities, there's no support system for that. You still get shame
No.
and ridicule, and society just allows that, but they will support anything else. So it's just insanity, that the way that this has gone. But and I never expected to share this with anyone. I think it took my near death experience and being in the presence of so much love and so much peace for me to understand that, you know, the ultimate goal, God's ultimate goal, period, is love. And that we just need to approach everyone with kindness and love no matter what. And that, after that near death experience, when I had some PTSD therapy, I was able to really deal with all of this. And it did take therapy for me to deal with it. And then, but I still didn't expect to share it. um, but that became something else. God led me to LA Marzulli. It was very strange how it all happened. And I never expected to share my story with anyone. But he sat down and wanted to interview with me. And after that interview, it became the centerpiece for his fourth movie in the UFO series on the abductions.
Mm.
And I was terrified when that movie came out. I was absolutely terrified because I had never shared my story with anyone before except for my husband. And now I had to make sure, my friends and family knew, because I'm like, they're going to see this. Everyone's going to see this, I have to share. And then the reception was so loving and kind after it came out, and the number of people who wanted to talk, just wanted to talk and share their story. Then I really felt led to write the rest of it. And that's why I wrote the book, and just to offer, to have something down, something tangible that people could hold on to, could refer to, that is, I share not just my experiences, and it's not all scary. I mean, there's some really wonderful, beautiful, positive, amazing, miraculous things that God has done in my life that are in the book as well, because I didn't want it to all be negative. But it's peppered with, a lot of biblical references that show where all of this is in the Bible, and how I was able to figure out who and what these things were and how to get away from them, and how other people can do that as well. And for me, that was something I really felt strongly about sharing with others. And the more I share, the easier it gets to share. I
Yeah,
mean, it's never easy. I mean, this is a very heavy burden to carry for your whole life. But God
absolutely.
makes that lighter and makes that easier. And so I'm hoping that it will be able to help in some way, some people somewhere.
Well, I will say that I am super happy and um, grateful that you've decided to come out with your story, and that you are trying to help people, because that I think I think the lesson for the greater of mankind, I think our life lesson is supposed to be love.
Yes, I agree 100%. It's all about love. That's the bottom line. And when you share that kindness and love with someone else, they're going to share that again with someone else. And if that's the bottom line, then we can't go wrong. I mean, hopefully. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're going to go wrong, but you know what I mean. It's going to have
Yeah.
a better outcome. And so I
Yeah.
do try to approach everything I do with that in mind. I still mess up. I'm not perfect, and I thank God for grace, because if it wasn't for that, I would be in trouble. But we do our best. So, but I love that you feel that way, because I agree.
Yeah. I like to say a lot in the recent like intros and stuff, because I'll touch on like the suicide hotline or whatever, if
Hmm.
somebody's having struggles or whatever, to dial this. And then you know um God looked around the earth and knew that the earth needed one of you, and he decided to put you here.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there's a reason and a purpose for every single one of us. And
Yes.
there's a lot of things out there that are going to make you feel like you don't matter, and you shouldn't exist, or
Hmm.
whatever. There's a lot of low vibrational people, or maybe they might not even be people, but like what is a non-character player or something like that. People
Yeah.
like that exist. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
and they're just gonna put you down and stuff. And it's just like you were saying when you were coming out with the story, you do have skeptics and stuff like that. And so I had a woman on recently. Her episode actually comes out tomorrow, and she went through kind of some of the things that you did,
Hmm.
where she had you know children taken from her.
Yeah.
And she was talking about going to that she was taken to Pallades, right? And I took a clip out of that, of her talking about being taken to Pallades.
Hmm.
And this guy decided to comment on it, and I'm very protective. Like, I haven't really had to, but I'm very protective of my guests. Like, I'm not like, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't talk shit about the person that I have on. Um,
That's
so
wonderful.
yeah, so he was like, "Oh, the Earth is flat. There is no such thing as planets." And then I like, even if there isn't, First of all, the Pleiades isn't a planet; it's a star cluster.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
place.
yeah, and so I just, when I confront people on stuff like this, I always lead with love. So I'm just like, well, I
Right.
was like, well, why don't you think of it this way? You know, what somebody might perceive as being on another planet, they might have just interdimensionally traveled to another realm
Exactly.
or
Well,
something
that's
like
exactly
that.
right. I mean, I don't disparage anyone who has a differing opinion or a different thought to me about what happened to them,
Hmm.
because everyone is going to see it and experience it in their own personal way. And so just to be able to share something like that takes an enormous amount of courage. And for that, you have to give someone the respect that they deserve. And you don't have to agree with them, but you do have to give them the respect and the love that they deserve. And realize that what may look, and I write this, there's a part in my book about this. I don't know if you remember, it was years ago, there was a blue dress on the internet, and some people said
Yeah,
it was green or black or blue, or what. Everyone saw it as a different color. And the
yeah,
point remained, it was still a dress. I don't care what color it was, and everyone can see it whatever they want to see it and what color. But the fact remains, it is what it is. And we're allowed to see it differently and experience it differently. And that's what makes the world so amazing is we might both be at a carnival and on the same ride, but get two completely different experiences from it. And that's beautiful because then we can share that and we have
absolutely.
different things to share. And so I never just, want to disparage someone who has a differing opinion or a differing thought. I will share my thoughts and I'll share what I think is important, and I think it's sad that, I think that it's amazing that there are so many people out there with these wonderful ideas about maybe flat earth or round earth or how the Nephilim came back after the flood and different things like that. And there's a lot of differing opinions. And I think that they're all really interesting. And I think that there's a possibility that they're all actually valid as well. Because the earth is so magnificent and God is so incredible. And when you try to put him in a box that fits into our space, you're going to get in trouble because we can't describe or explain God's universe, no matter how hard we try. So while the earth may be of one shape, it may also be another shape at the same time. It can exist as more than one thing. I mean, that's quantum physics. And you start to look into that and you realize how possible it is for many things to exist in the same plane at the same time in different forms. So we have to really open ourselves up to the possibility that we could all be right or we could all be wrong. But if it's not a salvation issue, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I think we really just need to approach each other, as we said in the beginning, with love and kindness.
Hmm.
Because the thing, like you said about people wanting to take their own lives, that's extremely serious. And if anyone out there is feeling that way, please reach out to someone. You are important, and you have meaning, and you are here because God wanted you here, and He doesn't want you to leave this earth. There's no reason for that, and whatever feelings you have, those are not from God. And if you just take 2 seconds to get on your knees and ask God to help you, He will. And then find a suicide hotline number, find a friend, find a website, reach out to me. I will respond to you. You can reach out to me. My email is stolenseed@yahoo.com. Email me. I will email you back. I will reach out to you. I promise. This makes me bleary eyed because I have been there, and I have those days where I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. I'm not sharing my message. I'm not sharing it well, that I'm just hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and that I'm just not worthy. And I've had very, very dark days in the past before I did this. And, I made a promise to God once that if when I felt that way, I would give Him at least 3 seconds of my time and pray. And every time He's pulled me out before could do anything, and and reminded me that He loves me. And that feeling can be overwhelming. But then when God reminds you how you feel, so you and I are both, this is getting us both because we've been there and we know how desperate and dark that is. But you don't have to, you're not alone. And no matter how dark it feels, you're loved. And I just think it's so important to share that because I know that feeling. And And God loves you, and I love you, and I don't have to know you to know that I love you. It's just important because that desperation is real. I understand how real it feels. I do. I do. So please just remember that for anyone listening who needs to hear that. It can get hard, but it will get better. It will get better. I promise. I promise it will get better. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to
No,
go on
thank
and
you.
on, but no, it's just so important. I know from being there, that they're just days. Some days are just really hard, and you just feel like everyone's against you, and everything is against you. And then the next day, things will turn around, and I'm just gonna be like, oh, God, you are so good. You are so great.
Yeah.
How did you do that? I never thought, and I don't try to put limits on God, but I doubt myself and I doubt my outcomes. But God, He's always there, and He knows way before I'm struggling that I'm going to struggle. And He knows way before that happens how He's going to fix it. And that's the beautiful part of it, is that He knows. And I learn something every time. And I think it's important to share that. So
Yes, absolutely.
sorry for getting
Uh,
so emotional, everyone.
that's all
If
right.
anyone's followed me, I tend to get emotional about some things, and this is one of them. So,
Yeah, it's what every once in a while somebody will be saying something and it just makes me cry. So,
yeah.
it's not the first time
Okay.
on the show. So,
Well, we can cry together. That means we're real friends now. We're lifelong friends now.
now we are real friends.
Oh,
um,
goodness. Okay. But back to topic.
yes, back to topic. So there are so many things.
Yes. I know it is. There are so many things that, that when you don't realize how many lives you touch, no matter what you do, and just by sharing one act of kindness, you can reach just if we could see the web that creates and how far that reaches, we would, I think, be 1,000 times more kind and loving to people every single day. I don't think we have any concept of how deep and how far that love can reach and
Yes.
how great God's love is. When I had my near death experience, it was a horrendous experience getting to that point, but the second I heard God's voice say, "It's okay, you can let go now," and He snatched me out in the blink of an eye, I just I felt the most incredible love and peace that is, we don't have a word to describe it, and there's no way to even explain it. It was beyond anything we have here, and just to know that we have that to look forward to. This is a step in our process, and we're here to learn. And if we don't learn to love here, then we're not going to appreciate the immensity of the love that is waiting for us when we move on. So that love and that peace was so incredible that it made me realize that that has to be the number one thing in life, is to share love and kindness, because it's it's the one thing that I experienced when I crossed over. And it was more powerful than anything I could ever describe. And that showed me just how important that is, because that is the one feeling that stayed with me. I didn't have any feelings of dread, of fear, of unhappiness, of pain. No, none of that came with it. It was just love and peace. So that shows how important that is. And we have a lot to look forward to. So, the more we learn to love now, the more I think we're going to appreciate it in the next phase of our lives. So,
Absolutely. I think if everybody can learn to let go a little bit and stop
yeah.
trying to control everything too, I feel
Oh,
like there'd be a lot more peace within ourselves as well.
right.
Um, but
I know
I
this
think
is
I'm
taking
done
an
now.
interesting turn, which is fun. I love when we have these conversations and they go off in whatever direction we feel led to go. I'm glad we're comfortable doing that because I think it's important.
Yes, I 100% agree with you.
Good.
So, but before we get before we end up talking too long about how we
Love.
cry and how
Yes.
we personally feel. Um, Now I wanted to ask you, when do you do you recall the first time ever, like when this all started for you?
Right. I don't, was happening from my earliest, youngest memories. Before my memories of the actual abductions taking place, like from them showing up in my bedroom and taking me,
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger than that, about 2 or 3 years old, I was terrified of my dad's side of the family because they were tall and thin and blue eyed and blonde haired, and they reminded me, they looked like the what people call the Nordic aliens that I was already encountering. Some people might call them Pleiadians. Everyone's got their own names for them. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these entities looked fairly human, except their eyes were very large, and but they were similar, the most similar to human of all the other entities that I encountered throughout my lifetime. And I was scared of anyone who had similar features to that. And I remember just being a tiny kid, like before I had really concrete memories. It is just the fear, the feeling of fear I had as a little kid, like almost an infant, practically, is so strong that I remember it. Um, and then when I hit about 5 or 6 years old, that's when the real concrete memories of the actual abduction scenarios are there. And I just remember at nighttime being so scared and wanting to hide. I remember thinking if I could find a suitcase and get in it under the bed and zip it up, that maybe they couldn't find me there, and my older sibling and I talking, and she's saying, it doesn't matter if you hide, they can see you through the house. Here we are, little kids like 5 and 8 years old, having a conversation about them being able to see us through the house. We didn't know what they were. We didn't have vocabulary for them. This was
Mm-hmm.
just a conversation, as like we're saying, what do we have for cereal? Just um, and and that was what made it tough too. Is we didn't know who and what they were. We didn't have the vocabulary that's out there now for them: UFOs, UAPs, aliens, whatever, grays, that kind of thing. They were the little ones that came to get me. That's what I called the grays. And other than that, we just didn't know how to even tell anyone what was happening. And when we tried to talk about it, when I tried to talk about it, then I was threatened, that they would hurt my family if I talked about it. So I didn't
By
talk
them.
about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a very ugly scenario. And I write about that, where they showed me my family being killed in front of me. And it was horrifying. And I cry whenever I try to recount that story, because it's still to this day is so emotional for me to think about, because the memory is still
Okay.
so clear.
Right.
And these weren't dreams, these are memories. Dreams, they don't stick with you, but memories are very different, and the I can go through a typical abduction scenario if you want, if you think your listeners would like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but real quick. Oh, I think I gotta sneeze.
Bless you.
So the grays that you were seeing
Hmm.
they were small. They weren't these tall, lanky things.
Well, there were different ones. The grays that would come to pick me up, the ones that would show up, they would show up in my bedroom. Basically, usually it was a nighttime,
Uh-huh.
being abducted from my bedroom when I was trying to sleep. So
Mm.
it wasn't always that, but that was the most common scenario. And I would feel them before I saw them. There's an evil presence. You can just feel the evil in the room. It would just change the atmosphere. To this day, if they're anywhere near, I can tell. I just still get that feeling. And again, it's one of these feelings that I don't have words for it, because it's not a normal feeling that we have. So there really isn't a good word to describe it, but I know when they're nearby. I can tell always. Um, and the little grays that would come to pick me up, they were kind of the 3 to 4 foot tall, big bulbous heads with a little tiny skinny neck. That the head and the neck were so out of proportion. Their eyes were like screens, like black screens. Their eyes didn't move. It was just looked like a lens, a black lens on their head. Their mouths didn't open. They didn't smell very good. Some of them smelled really rancid, like a cross between sulfur and feces, urine, or dead animal.
Oh,
And some
gross.
didn't have a smell at all. So I don't know if some of them, the tissue that they were made of, some of them might have been decaying or something. I have no idea. But these little grays were like cookie cutter. They all looked the same. I believe that these were manufactured like a avatar, like a meat suit. We can manufacture skin materials in a lab, and I think these were created to contain. They could either contain a another entity, or they could be driven by AI, or they could be driven by and inhabited by a demon. What we know about demons is that from the Book of Enoch and other extra canonical texts and ancient scrolls and all over the world, different ancient texts will refer to the similar thing, is that they were the disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim. So the Nephilim, which are the progeny of humans and fallen angelic beings, which I believe is still going on today. But those, when they were killed, especially in the flood of Noah, those ancient texts tell us that God said, you're neither of the heavenly realm or of the earthly realm, because it was abomination for those two to mate. And that's in Genesis 6, where it says the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were beautiful and took of them wives of all they wanted, and then they had children with them, and these became the mighty men of old, the Gibrim, the Nephilim, etc. And then the rest of that chapter and goes on is all about destroying them, where there was the flood of Noah. And then it says, but they were on the earth in those days and also after that. So they came back, which meant more angels fell and more angels were procreating with humans, or more fallen angels were. So what we have there then are these demons that are roaming the earth, and they need a body to inhabit, to be able to carry out whatever they want to do. And when Jesus cast the demons out of the man, they were like, please don't cast us out. Let us at least go into those pigs. They would rather be in a pig than in nothing at all. And so that just shows their desire to be in some living. They can be in an inanimate object too, like the idols or an animal or a human, anything like that. So that's what I believe is inhabiting these grays, because they have such an air of evil about them. And, just because they're demons doesn't mean that they are going to rape and kill and blaspheme. I mean, these things didn't have mouths that worked. They couldn't speak. They didn't have external organs, so they couldn't rape someone. They didn't have, their bodies were so frail, they couldn't have beat me up if they tried. As a little kid, I probably could have beat them up, and, but they had the ability to manipulate, me and my physical being so that I couldn't hurt them, because they would put me in a state of paralysis, which kept me from being able to fight them. And then they had the ability to manipulate, put me into what I call UFO brain fog, and everyone there was kind of in that scenario. And I think that has something to do with the low vibration, that low hum that I would hear. There's a lot can be done with this, with noise and the vibration. And everyone that I saw who was taken, besides myself, because there would be other humans that were abducted there as well, was just in like a stupor, and we were just, you can't think clearly. You don't act in the way you might normally. It's like you're in a trance, so you can think and you can remember things. I think for some people that's what keeps them from remembering as well. But for me, when I was little, I think I disassociated so much that even the trance didn't quite take over all the time. Once I learned to dissociate, they just kind of didn't worry so much. But I think that has a lot to do with it as well. There's a lot of research out there, and that's not my field of expertise, but excuse me, I'm sniffing here. Sorry, everyone. But so there were those grays, but then, so they were all kind of cookie cutter and the same. And, they just wanted to be in a body. So this gives them an avatar body to be in. And then, who knows if they do a good job, maybe they're allowed to inhabit one of the new Nephilim that are born, or something else. Who knows?
Or
there's some,
or one of the stolen seeds or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. So,
hey, Katie.
Yeah.
Want to make a podcast?
Sure. Can we talk about outrageously dark and scary things like murder and aliens?
Yeah. And is it cool if we talk about beautiful things like divination and astrology?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Hi, we're Katie and Kelly, hosts of the podcast All Things Outrageously Dark, Scary, Beautiful, and Totally True.
We recognize there's a lot of podcasts out there, but what sets us apart is our professionalism and dedication to our research.
New episodes every Wednesday. Tune in, and of course,
Have the day you deserve.
So, but so while those were kind of cookie cutter, the rest of the entities that I saw, they weren't all alike at all. I mean, so the other grays that I think these were fashioned after, they were like people in that they all looked different. They were all different heights and weight and different body structure. Some were very tall and just big and scary and looked like giant soldiers, and some were very petite and looked feminine, and some were taller and thinner, so they were just all different. They had different facial expressions, and their faces did have facial expressions, and their eyes were clearly eyes and not screens. So their eyes moved and their mouths could open. And so you could tell that they were extremely different from those little cookie cutter grays that would come to get me. And I think that they use those grays to get people because if, I don't know if there's a problem with them being in our atmosphere. There quite possibly is. And if someone, like if there's a crash and they retrieve the non-human biologics, as our whistleblowers have told us have been retrieved, what they're going to get is an empty meat suit, because that demon can then vacate that suit whenever, it feels like it needs to, and they've got an empty suit. And from what I've seen, that the leaked reports that aren't going to be verified by our government, but they are out there, say that these non-human biologics didn't have lymph systems and didn't have digestive systems. Well, that fits exactly into that avatar, type scenario.
Yeah.
So it really does all fit, and it makes sense why they would want to do that. They don't want to mess with us. We're a lower being. They're a higher being. They're angelic beings. Whether they're fallen or not, they're still a higher order than we are. They're much stronger, smarter, more capable than we are. And it, having been around them, I can attest to the fact that they can manipulate space, time, energy, matter in ways that we can't understand. And during this lifetime probably won't. And they don't fit into this little box that's our Earth. They don't fit into our idea of time and matter and space anyway, because they don't live within those confines. They're intradimensional, so they can cross over other dimensions, and they take us with them, as abductees being the general us. And so a lot of it is hard to describe and hard to make sense of, because anyone who's only ever been here on this earth is going to understand is what's here on this earth in time, the way we know it. And so it's, it's really hard to have that make sense to someone. So, but then, so they were all different. And then there were also the reptilians, and they were all different. The Nordics were all different. The, insectolan type, the ones that look like giant, almost praying mantis faces. They're very triangular.
Stories of those guys scare the crap out of me.
And yeah, and honestly, in reality, they were terrifying to me. They were almost always across the room. I think if they ever did get close enough or were ever close to me, I blocked those memories, or they put me under because I was so terrified I would just scream bloody murder. So I don't have any close-up memories that I've allowed of those. It's just there's something about those were so, I mean, the whole thing is terrifying, but something about those was the epitome of terrifying. It was the penultimate terrifying entity that was there. Because like the reptilians, they didn't scare me. They were the one that I was with was not ugly. He was beautiful in a way. He was shimmery. It wasn't like a slimy lizard man or something like that. No, he was quite stunning to see. He wasn't human, so he wasn't a human attractive, but he was not disgusting in any way. It was just different, and you have to wrap your head around the fact that, I'm used to seeing entities that are non-human. So I'm used to things not human, weren't bothering me, because I was seeing them for my whole life. So,
So, do you think? Because so there's a whole bunch of stories that I've heard. Do you think that they disguise themselves as humans and walk among us like on our day-to-days and stuff like that? Because um my friend Oren, my friend no my oh, not Oren, Shane, was saying that he was in a grocery store and he's got like this glimpse of this lady and he's like, this lady looks weird.
Excuse me.
And he's like, he like nudged his girlfriend. He's like, I think that lady looks like a lizard, and she had a mask on because this was during like the 2020 thing that won't go away
Yeah.
crap, you know. Uh, and he
The
turned
time
back
window.
around after he like his girlfriend looked, and then she like she looked like a lady, and he turned and she like pulled her mask down and fucking had like these sharp teeth, and her eyes like changed or
Oh.
something, and then she put her mask back up,
Oh, wow.
and it was
Okay. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's like, I got the sense of like, don't talk about it, like I'm gonna fucking
Oh,
like
yeah.
we're here kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Right. Yeah. Like you get that brain fog is all I can
Yeah.
describe it as. Yeah. Oh, I absolutely believe that they're walking among us. And I know that might sound a little crazy, but I've heard it from too many people, too many good
Mm.
friends who've seen things, stories just like that. I have to put you in contact with my friend Al Matthews, who had a very up close encounter with this woman who, her eyes just shifted in front of him and she did some very strange, crazy stuff. And I won't share all that because it's really his short story to tell. But he tells that also in Elie Marzulli's movies as well. Um, but yeah, Dr. David Jacobs has a book, Walking Among Us. I did try to read it. I haven't. It was just hard for me to read because it was so true, because it's stories from people like me. So
Right.
it was a little difficult. I might try again. It's been a long time since I tried to read it. But I was never able to read the books, watch the movies, none of that. It was all too difficult. So for my whole life, if there was like some movie or TV show or special on about UFOs or aliens, I was gonna flip past it as quickly as I could, knowing I was gonna have a nightmare just because I saw the words, or
Uh,
that that was gonna make me think about them and maybe they would show up, or it was a lifetime of not being able to look out a window at night or walk across the house alone in the middle of the night because then I would know when they were there, and I didn't want to walk across the house feeling their presence, not knowing if I would feel their presence or not. Not being able to look out a window, that kind of things. I can now. Only for the first time in my whole life can I look out a window now because I have on the full armor of God and I don't have to worry about them anymore. But they convinced me for my whole life that there was nothing I could do, that because they showed me how strong they were and they showed me how weak I was. And until the day that I realized that they had the same creator that I have, and that my creator is protecting me and loves me and wants to save me from them and from that life. Once I realized that, then they had to stop. And I could call
yeah.
on God and I could call on Jesus and say, in Jesus' name, you can't touch me. I rebuke you. Or I revoke any covenants made by me, known or unknown to me. My Father can revoke those covenants, my Father God. And once I did that, they were not happy. And they did keep trying to come back. And I had to just stick to my guns and say no, because they'd be like, you think, that's going to work? I'm like, I know it's going to work. And I know it's going to continue to work because they will try to trick you into not having faith.
Right.
And you just have to know once you've seen them back off once, you know, and
Yeah.
so you just, you know, and
Yeah. I
and
did
they are,
the
but they are liars, and they will come back. And they tried using my hybrid children. They tried, my handler tried coming back in an astral visitation to let me know that he was dying, and if I didn't come back, he would die. He needed me, and that, I, because I have compassion, and so trying to feed on my sense of compassion or my sense
uh,
of love or kindness, and so they're trying to use that against me, and but God doesn't want that for us,
no.
so But yeah, I do, to answer your question, back to your question, I do believe they walk among us. I do believe that they have the ability to affect how we see them. Kind of like that movie Them, where you put on the glasses and, they're not,
Yeah.
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 So,
That and what you were saying there, when that they have to abide by, that they're from the same creator, they have to abide by the same rules and stuff like
mhm,
that. I think this gives me, like, the way society is going and stuff, like, I think it makes me think more that they are walking among us. They're disguising themselves. They are putting themselves in positions of, like, demoralization. Look at, like, music videos and stuff like that, like,
oh, yeah,
or literally music nowadays. um Everything is all negative that is
mhm,
so hyped up to be positive, like it's the best thing in the world, you know what I mean? Like sex, money, and drugs,
right,
that's all that matters.
right. They make it seem glamorous and look, it's, and at first it might feel pleasant. At first it might seem like a fun or a good thing to do, but that feeling doesn't last. And the
No.
price on the other side of it is not worth it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some of this music is just trance inducing. And we
Uh-huh.
know from history, we know from ancient cultures and even modern cultures that certain rhythms and certain um, tones and certain megahertz are trance inducing. And that, once you let go of control, then you're going to make agreements that you wouldn't normally make. And
Mm.
everything in the universe, no matter what where you are, no matter what um, different where you are in the spectrum, whether you're on Earth or whether you're in an angelic realm or third heaven or wherever you are, no matter what dimension, sorry, that you're in, it's all very legalistic, and you have to follow very certain rules have to be followed. It's much like the myths of the vampire where they have to be invited to cross the
Right.
threshold. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the whole Bible is about threshold covenants and salt covenants, which are blood covenants, and the marriage covenants, and that's why the bride was carried over the threshold and things like that. And I won't go too deep down that road because that's my friend Vicki Joy Anderson's area of expertise, and to hear me explain it would not be as pleasant as to listen to her explain it, because she explains it extremely well and she understands this topic amazingly well. And her book is called They Only Come Out at Night, and you can find it where you find my book on lamarzulli.net, and I highly recommend it because it's, and I'm going to put you guys in touch. I know you're friends now, but she's amazing. And this is really important because everything, everyone's like, well, ghosts and demons are one thing and aliens are one thing and vampires are one thing. No, this is all the same thing. It's rebranded and repackaged for different people and different points of time and different generations, or for different, to give it a shiny new look. We're going to make this UFOs over here, and over here it's going to be demons and Satanology and all this. It's all the same thing. We are talking about good and evil. There are good people and evil people. There are good angelic beings and fallen angelic beings, for lack of a better word, the sons of God, the Bnei Elohim. We call them angels because that's what we've been trained to do over the years, but it's kind of a misnomer, but that's okay. Um, it's really just all the same thing. I mean, these aliens that I was in the presence of, the little grays were just demons, and the other ones, they were all fallen angelic beings, period. End of story. That's what they are. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my opinion based on my lifetime of being in their presence and my research and my understanding of my creator. And it's okay if you don't agree with me. You don't have to. But that is what I know to be true, because when I approach them, that we have the same creator and that they can't touch me because I'm calling on our creator to protect me, and they have to abide by that. And when they respect that, that tells me I'm right. And you can just, if maybe you're just using different words to describe the exact same thing that I am too, and that's okay. We can use different terminology to mean the same thing. um But when it comes down to it, that's what they are. And their plan is just to lead as many people away from the truth as they can in any way that they can. And by saying there are benevolent space brothers here to save us, here to save our planet, here to help everyone, that's just another way to do that. I can't get behind kidnapping little children and raping women and terrorizing people and mutilating animals and cattle and people. That's not benevolent behavior, and it never will be in my book. And I can't think of any way to justify that. If someone can, please tell me, but I can't.
Right.
So
Right. There's talk about how they're here because they're observing and they because they don't want us to use nuclear weapons and this and that or
right,
whatever. And I'm just
right,
like, if they're observing and they don't want us, bombing the shit out of the planet, then why are they abducting people? Why are they, taking
right.
people and doing all this, like you just said,
Yeah.
basically terrorizing people
Look at the
for,
Maelstrom Air Force Base story. I mean, we already know they can shut down these nuclear
yeah.
facilities if they want to. That's been proven. And
Hmm.
you don't have to believe in God to know that these entities can do that. Um, but so that wipes that off the board right there. They don't need to get our attention to stop us from blowing each other up. They can just stop it if they want. A benevolent
Right.
being would just turn those things off if that were their goal, but that's not their goal. And if we're going to blow each other up, God's going to let that happen if that's what we're going to try to do, because we have free will and we live in a fallen world, and we're never going to learn to love each other and love him without free will, because you
Mhm.
can't force someone to love you, and you can't
Absolutely.
force someone to learn to love. So people are like, well, how can a loving God let these things happen? It's because he's a loving God, that he wants us to learn to love each other. But you can't have the dark, you can't have the light without the dark. And you can't understand that there's good until you see that there's bad. And for us to be able to see that contrast is just going to make it even sweeter when we're done. So it's unfortunate that we live in a fallen world, but that's what we have. And we weren't born with any guarantees. We didn't come into this world and given a piece of paper by God that says your life is going to be perfect. Amen. That's not how it works. I'm not sure, why so many people feel they're entitled to this perfect life, but I get that question a lot. And it's all I can do not to say, who says you deserve, who says we deserve that? We don't. So anyway,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, the
Exactly.
benevolent space brother thing does not fly for me. And I have talked to many people who do believe that, and I have just, I've just approached them with kindness and love, like we've talked about, and shared what I know. And I've yet to find someone who can explain to me how kidnapping and killing and raping and scaring people is benevolent action. So, like I said, if you know, share with me. I'd love to know.
I would love to know that too.
Yeah, it just doesn't
So,
fly.
right.
Hmm.
So let's go through the typical abduction that you were
Oh,
experiencing.
yeah, I think we started that about an hour ago. Let me get back to that. Sorry. Right. So typically, and it was really similar throughout my whole life, and I remember different parts from different times, but a
Hmm.
typical scenario was, they would show up and I would notice that those little short grays would be in the room, and I would feel just that difference in the atmosphere in the room, just feeling evil. And there would be usually a low hum that it was just like holding onto a bass speaker almost. It kind of filled your being, kind of low vibration. And once I noticed them, I would usually get scared when I was a little kid. Sometimes I'd wet the bed, or I'd cry, or I'd yell out. If there was someone else in the room or in the house and I yelled out, they wouldn't respond. It was like everyone else in the house was put into a deep sleep. And even as an adult, if I was being taken and there was someone else in the room, that deep sleep was put upon everyone else who was within earshot. Um, and then they would levitate me. At that point, I'd be put into like a not sleep paralysis, but a waking paralysis, where I was wide awake as it started, but now I can't move my body, and I'm in a paralysis state, and I would be levitated, and I would just levitate, and the whole body is now just that kind of hum of the deep kind of bass vibration almost, and at that point they would levitate me up through a ceiling or out through a closed window. And I know it sounds crazy, but like I said, they can manipulate space, time, energy, and matter in ways that we cannot understand. But I would remember details of little things in the ceiling, like the wallpaper or the paint, depending on where I was, or all the bugs or the dirt that was in the light fixture, or the way the screen looked when I got real close to it, how the squares weren't all the same, and some were broken and some were bent, or smudges on a window or decals on a window that had been scraped off or were still there, or whatever, just random things that you get so close to something, it's just like right in your face. At that point is usually when I'd be shut down, like into a sleep state. And then I would wake up sometimes on an exam table. Just, they wouldn't ever say what they were doing. They would say things like, you're okay, we're not going to hurt you. Just, things that weren't really comforting, but were intended, I guess, to be comforting. They could like pass their hand over my forehead or my eyes, or even touch me, and it would make like pain stop, or I wouldn't be scared anymore. They could control my emotions and how I felt. And it was so weird that they could do that just so easily. Sometimes I would wake up at a bank of elevators and get in these elevators that just went down and down and down. And that's why I knew I was in an underground facility. There were some areas of this facility that were clearly cave-like, like really old, that I would go to with my handler. That was like where his area was. But most of it was just like underground cities. It was huge. It was massive. I mean, there were some areas that were just as big as a big open stadium or airport. And there were just hallways and stairwells and rooms and facilities and just people. And there were people that were being taken, and then there were non-human alien entities, and then there were humans working alongside of them. And some of them in like lab coats, like looking things like doctor coats or scientisty coats. I didn't know. I was little, and even as an adult, I didn't know what they were doing, because they don't tell you, and you're not allowed to talk to them. And when you're in UFO brain fog mode, you don't talk to the people you might normally talk to.
Right.
And then there were, so that some of them looked military, but they weren't typical fatigues like what my kids who'd been in the military wore. They were different. Not entirely different, but they weren't the same. It's like, it's a weird pattern and weird colors. But it wasn't the same as our Army fatigues. So it's hard to describe.
That's okay.
And yeah, so, but anyway, so there were all these different people, everyone doing their own thing, and I write about different things that happened when I was there, just a few different scenarios, that happened. The elevators, then I would remember sometimes getting on what I called the sideways elevators, because when I was little, I had nothing to compare to. And it had to have been some kind of like a high-speed transport system, because there were benches and it went side to side, and sometimes it went up at an angle and some went down at an angle. So
Okay.
I have no idea, where I was. But it was massive. And I really think that this is all under our feet. This is all happening right here underground, and we just have no idea what's there or where. I mean, if you think about it, we don't know what the Earth is made of. We've drilled, maybe 8 miles down, and the Earth
Yeah.
is 160 miles across, I think, something like that.
Supposedly.
Yeah, so supposedly, if someone's actually measured it, we don't know if anyone actually knows the circumference of the Earth. We don't know how deep it goes, and we don't know what's down there. We only know what information's been released to us about somebody who supposedly drilled 8 miles deep. and what they supposedly found, but even that could be a lie. So all I know is I was underground and it was massive. And
there's a sorry to cut you off,
no,
but
it's fine.
there's a story of a trucker, because there's military bases underground in the mountains and stuff like that. And this trucker guy has a story of he had to, so some of the trucks have cameras on them like for their dash and stuff.
Yeah.
So I know when I go on to the naval base at work in my truck, I have to cover up the camera. I have to leave my phone with the guards. I can't have anything that can record audio or video with me, and I'm just there to pick up the trash, And so this trucker has this story of going to this base that goes underground. I believe it's out in Colorado. I could be incorrect, so I apologize to anybody that's familiar with the story. And back up to this loading dock, and he had like this little room, because so like he would go down, he'd go underneath the ground a little bit, he'd get into the turnaround back up to the dock, he'd go into the base, and there'd just be like this little waiting room with vending machines and a bathroom and just a lounge chair and stuff. And he ended up becoming friends with a couple of the guards there, and he swears that one of the guards was an insect alien because he accidentally caught him in like the bathroom or something like that
Oh,
without his human face. So I just,
no, that makes
you
sense.
went into the underground part, and that's just
Yeah.
immediately when because you were like,
Wow.
I was at the elevators that just kept going down and down and down and down. That's
Yeah.
immediately what I thought of was that guy's story.
Wow. That actually makes sense because the handler that I had appeared to me as human at first, and then I noticed that he would sometimes I would see he like kind of fuzzed in and out, and I'm like a hologram almost. I'm like, you don't really look like that, do you? I want to see what you really look like because I was
Yeah.
comfortable with him. I'm like, I want to know what you really look like. And he was reptilian. And he finally showed me. And I wasn't afraid of him because had been around him for so
Yeah.
long. But it was he and I thought, he wasn't ugly or gross. He was just different. And I thought he was, even beautiful in some ways. So no, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, and you think, we have the ability and the equipment to not just to bore into mountains, but to practically melt our, into mountains. So it doesn't surprise me
And
at
there,
all. I mean, I haven't done a lot of research on that, but I've heard people talk about the, Mount Shasta and about the, in Colorado, the airport and supposedly the tunnels between the airport and the bases and things like that. So I have no doubt that those things exist. I don't doubt that at all because I spent so much time underground with these entities that I just think, we were told in school, oh, well, the earth looks like this. And they show you that cutout of the earth with a quarter of
yeah.
it cored out. And this is what all these layers look like. I'm like, how do you know that? And when you ask a teacher, how do they know that? No one can answer. Well, it's theorized that, and it's like, no one could ever explain, and I'm asking all these questions because I'm like, that's not what it looked like where I went, but I'm not allowed to say
Right.
anything.
Right.
But I'm like,
I'd be like, what?
I would be burned up, right? Isn't that kind of counterproductive? No, so yeah, I mean, I think that there's so much under our feet. Do I think they walk among us? Yeah, I think some of them do. And I think that they're here, they're under our feet. I mean, and they have that ability to make you think that things are happening that aren't. So I think some people, they are using ships for transport. They are being transported in the skies, and who knows where they could be transporting to, whether you're going through different dimensions or different places. But I don't think that they're Pleiadians from the Pleiadian star cluster or Alpha Centauri. I know that they're just fallen angelic beings who are existing quite possibly under our feet or in cross dimensional and interdimensional places that we just don't fully understand because we can't grasp that with our limited intellectual capacity.
Absolutely.
So it sounds better to say, oh, there are space brothers from Mars or Alpha Z, and let it go at that. And that's just not the case. And I think it's more dangerous, and it's more close by than anyone realizes. And it's very easy for them to take a small child from their home with no one being any the wiser. And as a child, myself and many others who I've spoken to, we were groomed and trafficked to be part of their program. I mean, I was groomed to not speak about it the same way when little children are trafficked into the sex trafficking trade or anything else like that. I was threatened with my family, with my loved ones, not to speak. People are like, why didn't you tell anyone? How did your parents not know? How do they not know about all kinds of things? This happens every day. I hear that question asked to parents all the time. You can't always say it's the parent's fault. Sometimes it is, but it's not the parent's fault. There was nothing there for them to notice. You know, there's an excuse for everything, and I made sure to cover it up because I was not going to be responsible for my family being hurt by these things. And as a small child, I was terrified that I was terrified to step out of line, to break the law, to do anything wrong, you know, and even as an adult, I still felt that way, you know, and so as a child, you know, I was groomed to act in a certain way, to be a certain way, to do a certain thing. And at a certain point, you know, I just dissociated from it as well, because I realized there was no one who was going to save me or protect me. The adults in my life couldn't know. And I didn't even know how to tell them if I could, you know, and I really just felt helpless. And I think that's the case for, like I said, if it was just me, it would be one thing, but there's so many of us out there.
There really is.
I mean, I get at least one more person every day who says, I just read your book and I feel like I read the story of my life. I never expected to hear that. And I hear it over and over and over again. So, you know, this is real, folks, and it's dangerous. And it is a part of the great deception that is going to come upon the earth. And if you're not educating yourself and listening to all these amazing people out there like Kevin, who are trying to get this truth out there, you know, you're going to wake up and be very, very shocked one day when you realize that you've been duped all along.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
wool is really comfy. That's all I'm going to say about that. Wool is very comfy.
Especially when it's right over your eyes. I think it's itchy, and I'd rather not have it over my eyes. I'm telling you right now. Yes, they're it's much easier without the blinders on. You know, and most people, it's scary. It's scary to look at the truth. The truth can be scary.
I get scared still, even now. The more people that I talk to about you, like you, and stuff like that, and the things that, you know, that I've come to believe in with what I look into and stuff, like I get scared. Like, you know, the way things are. So never mind. I'm not going to touch that. I was going to touch something, but I'm not going to go into that because, but it's just the way the world is.
Well, let me put it this way then. You're scared because that's something God's put in you to protect you. And that's what should tell people that this is real and that God is real. That's why you're scared, because it's saying, stay away from this. This is not something to mess with. Don't go out looking for them. Don't go calling on them. Don't go putting big pictures of them on your shirt, because that's basically just wearing you might as well have a big Baphomet head on your shirt as well as, you know, or green alien head. It's all the same thing. Don't do it. I'm just recommending that. You're scared for a reason. You're scared because it's a protective mechanism that God's built into you so that you don't go picking up rattlesnakes. You don't have to know what one is to know you shouldn't touch it. You know, scary things are scary. Falling is scary. You only have to get close to experiencing to realize, ooh, I don't want to do that, you know.
Hello, my spooky friends. This is your host, John, from Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest.
This is actually John. I hope my spooky voice scared you.
And in this podcast, we're going to have creepy guests and spooky tales and mysterious sightings of cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. So tune in if you dare to be scared.
Follow those instincts. They're
Right.
usually spot on.
And what you're talking about too, when they were like grooming you and getting you comfortable with them and stuff, that's that's what predators do. Like we know that we've a lot of us have experienced
Exactly.
it, unfortunately. And there's people get there's so much trauma in a lot of people these days through that, and for people to not understand how people feel about those kinds of people, and to try and say that like the trafficking of children is a conspiracy theory when we've found trafficking rings in the last like 3
Yeah.
years. There's
No.
been like 3 like large traffic
Right.
rings that have been discovered,
Right.
but it's a
Oh my
theory.
gosh. Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but yeah, it does. It's like for someone to say that no one's ever hurting little children, that's ridiculous. But then those same people will turn around and say, well, how could a loving God allow children to be hurt? I'm like, well, didn't you just say that was a conspiracy theory? So which is
Yeah.
it? Pick a side. And they do what's convenient for them because they're out there trying to cause problems. They're trying to, say, well, what you're saying isn't true. There's no way that could be true. They're just trying to cause problems and keeping the truth
Yeah.
from people. So yes, I mean, I do recommend to everyone, don't just believe everyone outright. Do the homework, do the legwork, listen to more people. I always tell people, don't just listen to me. Listen to lots of different people, and then make up your own mind. Pray about it. Do the work. Just verify, test the spirit, test everything. Make sure and just ask for discernment. And follow your gut. Sometimes that's all you can do. But it is really important because there's a lot of deception out there, and these beings are among them. I always say the bad guy who's coming to carjack you or rob you doesn't walk around with a t-shirt that says, hey, I'm a carjacker and a thief and I'm headed your way next. That's not how it works. Or someone's going to kidnap a little child doesn't walk around, announcing that either. So you have to remember that. And even, the Bible tells us that even the most elect would be deceived.
Absolutely.
And there will be a great deception brought on people. So we have to be prepared. You have to be ready for that and make sure that you feel comfortable in what you believe and who you're listening to. Because there's a lot of people out there who say they know what they're talking about. And I call those little gray lies. And I am going to be releasing more information on that on my social media because I write about it. There's a chapter in my book called Little Gray Lies. I write for L.A. Marzulli's newsletter, and quite often my article is titled Little Gray Lies. And what that is just when I refer to what I feel are false or misleading statements about UFOs and extraterrestrials and aliens, because a lot of these statements can get people in trouble because there's well-meaning so-called experts out there who really don't know what they're talking about because they're coming at it from research, which is good. Some researchers are really good, like L.A. Marzulli. Some not so good, and I'm not going to say who because I don't disparage anyone. I'm just going to say there's some false and misinformation out there. Just be careful. One of the biggest ones I had recently was I had some people come up to me at a conference and say, well, I heard because I'm a Christian I can't be don't have to worry about being abducted by
I've heard somebody
aliens.
say that too. I don't know. I can't remember who, but I've heard somebody say that. I was like, what?
I'm like, that. Why would Ephesians chapter 6, verses 13 through 17 tell us to put on the full armor of God if we didn't need to be protecting ourselves? Or why would 2 Corinthians say that, that Paul warns about how Satan can lead Christians astray? Or it's 1 Peter, where he says that the devil prowls like a lion in the night, and on and on. I could go on and on and on and quote one after another. But the people who aren't following the truth, the people who don't know God, who don't have that in their lives, Satan's not interested in them. He doesn't have to worry. They're already coming in down his path. It's those of us who know the truth. Those are the ones. It's not that he's going to be able to get us away from God, but he wants to make us miserable.
For sure.
And try to lead us astray in any way that he can, and make us feel bad, and make us feel like we don't deserve, to be saved. Well, that's the whole point. We don't. We live in a dispensation of grace. So, but what I warn is just because you're proclaim yourself to be a Christian, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. First, second, you still have to know that they can still come after you. But, anyone can call on God, can call on the name of Jesus and ask to be protected and ask to be, saved from these things. You don't have to go to a certain church or be a certain person or listen to a certain person or this or that or the other. You just have to ask him into your heart, believe in him, and believe that he wants to save you and protect you. There's not some magic formula that you have to follow, and just calling yourself or being a Christian doesn't mean that you're not subject to these entities. Not at all. As if anything else, it makes you more valuable and desirable. And that just means you just have to make sure when you go to bed at night and wake up in the morning, you're thanking God, and that you're reminding Satan, you have no place in my life. I don't have to worry about you. You just have to make sure you're saying it. Make sure that you know it. And then you're okay. So, sorry, little gray lies. Things that get under my skin.
I'm gonna have to
Karen's
read some
pet
of
peeve.
those then, because
Yeah, I'll share some to you
because
for sure.
I'm like, I'm in there. Like when I especially when I see things in the media, things that are like big stories or whatever, and then I'm just like, something doesn't sit right with me with that. Like, you know what I mean? Not all of them, but a good portion.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that doesn't sound right. It's just that's kind of weird. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have lots more of those to share, and if we get together again, we can do a whole show on little gray lies. I love to talk about that because I like to set the record straight, and I think it's important because I don't want people to be misled, especially when it comes to this, because there are, like I said, it's the supernatural and the UFO field are flooded with people who calling themselves experts. And I don't know what the
I
criteria
don't feel like
is.
anybody can
I
be
would
an
not say that
expert.
I'm an expert. Yeah. I don't think I wouldn't call myself an expert at anything except maybe messing up
Well,
sometimes.
you're an expert at your own
but
experiences.
yeah, I even, even in myself, I'm just like, but, so, and I just, there's a lot of misinformation put out there by well-meaning people. So I don't ever point anyone out, but when it's something that I know is something that concerns me, that it could bring harm to someone, then that's when I want to point it out. Like another one is like the benevolent space brothers things. Not all abductions are bad. Some are good.
Really quick on that
Or that.
note, I've heard,
Yeah.
so this is what some people are saying, that the good when you have a good experience with an alien or abduction, any kind of like extraterrestrial interdimensional being abduction, and
Mm-hmm.
it's positive, that is a real like alien experience. Where when it's negative and it's rapey or whatever, that's our government
Mm-hmm.
trying to get us to be scared of the aliens.
Oh my gosh, that is a good one. Can I
Yeah.
take that? Can I share that with others? Thank you. Um, yeah, I will share that because I hadn't heard that. But yeah, that's just another way that makes sense. That's another way to spin it, right? Because they don't want the negative stuff to be reported as what they're doing. So yeah, because I've heard a lot about military abductions, MILABs, and I've had a lot of people ask me, "Have you ever had a MILAB, a military abduction?" I'm like, "No," but there were humans there working
Yeah.
with these alien entities. They were working side by side, so I'm not sure that there's really any distinction between the two, quite honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if government agencies were picking up abductees just to see how much they were remembering, and if they were remembering that the government was working with them, that kind of thing, just kind of covering their backside. I mean, that's why every time we think we're getting traction with the government as far as the reporting and things, and we just had that, you and I talked briefly before we started about the Arrow report that just came out. It was released in February. Well, it was created in February, released in March, about the Arrow is the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office for the government, which is supposed to be researching the UFOs and aliens and all that. And their report just came out that basically said there's nothing to it. There's no craft. There's no non-human biologics. There's no reverse engineering. There's nothing to it. It was ridiculous. It was laughable. But they're backpedaling, and they're not going to share this information because they would have to admit culpability, and they're not going to do that. So they're going to continue to try to find different avenues of bringing this out. The problem that they're going to run into is there's too many abductees talking. Seems to me people are remembering more, and I don't know if it's because it's more in the news and they're more comfortable with it. Maybe the veil is getting thinner, but even I am having memories that I didn't have before that have come back, and I don't share them because I'm just only shared, what I've shared for specific reason. But more memories are coming back more clearly, and other people are experiencing that same thing, and then people are seeing things, and we have the ability to share. I mean, you're in Maine, I'm in Texas, but we can share a video instantly. If you saw something in the sky, I could watch it with you because you could just FaceTime with me and just point it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, we're in a sharing world right now. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We can share information. So they're not going to be able to keep this under wraps much longer. I don't know what they thought they were going to accomplish by doing this, except to maybe pull it out of the mainstream press for a little while so it would cool down while they kind of regrouped and figured out how to deal with their whistleblowers, which is kind of what I'm thinking is going on.
That's what it sounds like to me as well. For sure.
Yeah. For sure. So, because you can't just say all that and then come out with a report that doesn't address any of it. I mean, the report has nothing about like Commander David Fravor and the Tic Tac UFO, nothing about the whistleblowers, nothing about the things that we all know and have seen. It is all old stuff that's already been refuted and dealt with and has no bearing on anything. Like I said, looks like it was written by an 8-year-old, maybe a 6th grader, the night before it was due in school. That was my first impression. I'm like, did you forget this assignment was due and just pull a bunch of stuff from somewhere? I don't
get
understand.
Your kid that's in middle school to do it.
Not what I expected. Yeah, right? Yeah. Oh, I bet you got this off one of those websites, right? Where you can buy someone's research paper. Yeah, I bet that was it. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but this does not feel official at all to me. It's a nice official hefty size. I have it right here. It's like 60 pages. Cow flatulence got like 1,000 pages. So
interesting.
But this got like 60. So we got to love that. Most of it's just the same thing over and over again, and a lot of title pages and stuff like that. But or this page left intentionally blank. I love that. But there's nothing to it. I said it. Yeah, it's a nice diet document. Big nothing burger. No calories.
Oh, nice. Love
None
it.
at all. So, nothing burger. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Oh gosh. Well, this has been amazing. I know we have strayed all over the place, and I hope we can do it again because I'm sure I haven't answered any of your questions. And
it's totally fine. It's totally fine. If do you need to get
I
going?
know I'm running out of time for the night, so I do. I'm going to run out of time soon, so I don't want to go too far and not have a chance to answer any more questions that you have.
All right.
So
well, if you don't mind, if you have the
Yeah.
time, real quick, to get into the pregnancies, I'm sure everybody would love to hear that.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. I will get into that and then, that's why I wanted to. I know we're going to get close here, so I didn't want to miss anything else you wanted to ask. So I first the first time I had a missing pregnancy, I was 21 or 22, I think. Yeah, I was married. It was not like it was impossible for me to be pregnant or anything like that. So I found out I was pregnant. I went to the doctor, had everything confirmed, got a prescription for my prenatal vitamins and, did all the tests and everything. And so a doctor confirmed pregnancy. It wasn't just me thinking I was pregnant. In about the end of the first trimester, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was in pain and I was spotting a little bit, but nothing came out of me. I was having abdominal pain. And so I had my husband take me to the hospital, and we get there and they couldn't find a heartbeat. And I think they did an ultrasound in that one. It was different each time, but there was no heartbeat, ultrasound, there was no baby. So they did a, D&C, and there was no fetal tissue. My uterus was just completely clean.
Wow.
Had I had a miscarriage, there would be something
Right.
there. And that's why they do that. It's to make sure everything is out and that you're, not going to have an infection or anything like that. Nothing. No fetal tissue, nothing. No sign of any pregnancy at all. And it was a confirmed pregnancy. And I believe at that time I was still testing positive. Like the hormones are still in my blood. And the doctors are like, "Are you sure you were pregnant?" And, I'm like, "You can call my doctor. We went through all this, It was devastating.
I can imagine.
Absolutely devastating. I mean, I had this baby 1 minute and the next minute it's gone. And I can't mourn this child. I don't know if it was a boy or a girl. I couldn't memorialize it. It was just so devastating. And this happened a couple of times. And since then, I have spoken with so many women who went through the exact same thing. You see the baby, you hear the heartbeat, you get the blood tests, everything, has been confirmed. And then all of a sudden, some doctor's telling you, "Are you sure you were pregnant?" Or, "Well, your body must have absorbed the baby." Or my favorite is, "You lost the baby, you just didn't realize it." Every woman I've talked to, I'm like, "Would you know if something came out of you?" Yeah. It's not like it's made of invisible babies. It's. It's devastating. And then on top of that devastation, you have someone questioning your grief. So that happened just over and over again. And I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was in a lot of denial over it as well because I didn't want it to be true. And in between there, I did have my own children. But during one abduction, the reason I knew for sure that this is what was happening was early on, during one time after that had happened, I was taken and we're in the facility, which I'm assuming is underground because, the elevators and stuff. And we're in a part of it that I hadn't been in before. And the hallway, everything there is really darkly lit anyway. And this particular hallway is like kind of a red backlighting. I can never tell where the lights are coming from there either. It's so weird. It's not like there's lighting fixtures or anything. It's just everything has light coming from somewhere, but I'm never sure where the light's coming from. It's one of those weird questions. When you're in that UFO brain fog, it's so weird because it's one thing I was always just in my head going, "Where's the light coming from? I can't tell where the light's coming from." And that was always going through my head. Anyway, so this hallway is lined with what looks like aquariums on either side. And in these aquariums are some sort of fetuses. And they're all different stages and different sizes. And some of them look kind of human. I don't know what they are, and I certainly can't see them all because some are up quite high. And, I'm trying to pay attention, still in that foggy kind of state, but I'm trying to really look and see what's in there because I'm like, I had never been down this hallway before. I knew that this was a new place down here for me. And these, you gotta remember, these facilities are huge. And I'm just looking, going, what are these? And I knew enough from all the biology class and all that stuff to know that they were fetuses, but I wasn't sure if they were animal or human or what. And some of them definitely looked human. And we get to the end of this hallway, and then those aquarium-like things stop, and there's a door on either side, and then the hallway just continues as a normal hallway. Then they open one of these two doors, and it's a room that's the size of a large closet. One of the walls is like a big window, like a big, huge picture window. There's a woman in there, and she's on the ground, and she's imitating childbirth, I found incredibly disgusting. And she was just 100% bought into whatever process was going on, and I did not like that. And it was apparent immediately that she and I did not want anything to do with each other. We were coming at this from very different angles. And so I go into this room, and there's a gray and a tall gray who looks feminine, and I don't know if they were male and female, but it looked feminine. And then a Nordic woman, feminine looking. They also look a little bit androgynous, so it's hard to tell. Anyway, they hand me a little baby. And it's very dark red and purple, almost blue in color. And more like a purplish blue. And it's very small, but the head is really big compared to the body, and the eyes are really big compared to a human. But I knew it was mine. It had features that just looked like, my babies always had these giant cheeks and big round faces. Anyway, so they hand me this baby, and they said, "This is your baby. It's a good baby. Hold your baby." And so I take this baby, and I just remember holding it up to me, and it wouldn't cuddle into me. No matter what I did, I could not get this baby to respond to me. And I'm just getting so upset because the baby won't respond. I'm like, what's wrong with the baby? And I'm crying, and I'm upset, and I'm so distraught because the baby won't respond to me at all. And I know it's mine. And I'm like, I'm taking this baby with me. And they're like, no, you have to go now, because I was getting really upset. And they're like, no, okay, it's time to go. And they came to take the baby back from me, and I did not want to give the baby back. I was very, very upset because I was going to take it home. It's mine. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to love it. It's going to be fine, not thinking clearly, and I was just so distraught, and they just snapped me off, switched me off. And next thing I know, I'm waking up, and I'm back in my room, and I was just so, so distraught and so upset, and it was just horrible, because the thought of, I wanted it. I wanted it. It was mine, and I wanted it. And even though I understood later in life that these were hybrid entities, and that they're not human, and they're not going to act and react like a human, and everything I had learned about Nephilim was that they were evil and that they weren't good, I still wanted my children. I thought, they're half me, so I could probably fix them.
Yeah.
And God's like, no, you can't, and I'm still praying to God, please let me have my children. Please let me have them. I wanted them so bad. And I really think God heard my prayer and let them use, I think they used my children to try to get me to come back to them, back to the entities, to let them, to come back into the program, for lack of a better word. Because I woke up one night, it was only about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And I have it written down when it happened. I just have to look at the date. Because time flies. I can say
sure
that.
Does.
It could be like 6, 8 years, 10 years. Yeah. But I woke up in the middle of the night, and I look, and there's 3 of my kids standing by the bed, and I say one of my children's names out loud. I'm like, hey, so-and-so, what's wrong? And I have a lot of kids, and I have a lot of kids that call me mom. So for a couple of them to show up at the side of the bed and have something in the middle of the night is not something that I would find unusual at all. The problem is they weren't all living at home at that time, and these kids that were standing by my bed were too short to be my current children. My boys were much taller at this point. These guys were about 4 to 5 feet tall, maybe 5 feet tall. And my kids are all taller than that at that point. But I did say my youngest's name because he was closest in height to these. But I could tell they were my kids. They looked like me. They were mine. And I hit my husband as hard as I can, and I say his name. I'm like, wake up. And he will not move. He is switched off. He is like in a coma, out cold. So I'm sitting up and I'm like, I can't believe you're here. I'm so happy to see them. Okay. I am excited. I am happy to see them. I look at them. Their skin almost looks blue. Their eyes look black, but it's hard to tell if they were black or not because it was so dark. They were wearing what looked like gray hooded shirts or maybe like a hoodie. I could tell it wasn't a normal hoodie, like, Nike wasn't sprawled across the chest or anything like that, but they were plain, but it was like a gray hooded hoodie type shirt thing. And they were really thick, stocky kids. And my kids are a lot thinner than that. I just looked at him and I was like, it's you. Oh, I was so happy to see them. And I just felt the most intense evil come off of them.
Oh, no.
Words can't even describe how the hate and the evil that came off of them was palpable. And I'm like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? And all they did was just keep repeating, and it was mind speak, not verbal. They kept saying, you have to come with us. You have to come with us. You have to come with us. I'm like, no, I can't go with you. You stay here with me.
Yeah.
Even though I'm feeling this evil, I'm still like, no, I'm not going with you, but you can stay here with me. And they're like, you have to come with us. No, you have to come with us. And finally I'm like, no. And just almost habitually, I said, no, in Jesus' name, I'm not going. No, in Jesus' name, no. As soon as I said the word, as soon as Jesus' name passed through my lips, they just were gone. And my husband at that same second sits straight up in bed and he's like, what? And I'm like, oh, just within that split second, as soon as I say Jesus' name, they were gone. My husband sits straight in bed and, the evil was gone. It was just all gone. And I was just, I was really shaken by it. But at the same time, I got my closure. I got to see them and I got to know that they weren't human. They had no love in them. They had no kindness in them. They had no compassion in them. There was no humanity in there. There was nothing for me to fix. I will not say whether or not they could be redeemed because that's between God and them, not me and them. That's not for me to say. Do I believe that they could be? No. There was just no love there. There was nothing there. It was like they were soulless. It was like they were just pure evil. And I always thought because they were half me that there was going to be good in there, that God would give them some kind of a soul or good, but that wasn't there. And I know now, and I know from my research, and I know from reading that is an abomination. I always thought when I read like the book of Leviticus in the Bible, it was so boring to me. And it was just like, why am I reading this? Because I wanted to read everything, right? Because I figured there was something important everywhere. Well, now I realize, there was a lot in there for me that I was just going, oh God, why do I have to read this? It was important. And I wish I'd paid more attention because those answers were in that book. There's a lot in there that I was like, ugh. But there's a lot in there that was important and I wasn't paying attention. So I know now that I got my closure. God showed me because I wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
Be careful what you pray for. It was terrifying.
That sounds terrifying. I would not want that for myself. But I kind of can't because I can't get pregnant. So I can't have that connection.
But if it was someone, but they can take your sperm and they could utilize that to create one. And so, it happens to men and women alike. And I have men that I've spoken with who were raped and whose sperm were taken. And, so that could, if that happened to you, then you could have half children out there that are modern day Nephilim. And, that's what I think that they've been working on to try to make them more and more human. I mean, I didn't I didn't think, back they used to talk about how people would see their hybrid children, and they were all scrawny with the scrawny hair and really blue eyes and pale skin, and they look really sickly. And so I was like, well, these didn't look like that at all. And then LA pointed out that these look more like the black-eyed children. I'm like, oh yeah. And that there's kind of been this progression. And now when people see them, they look so close to human. It's very hard to tell. And that's why I think that they could be walking among us easily, and we just wouldn't know it. And Dr. David Jacobs has spoken with so many people who have experienced these entities walking among us and living among us, and we just didn't realize it.
And it's funny too, because we didn't, from what I know anyway, like there wasn't any abductions until like the 40s, right? And then
that's just when they were starting to become more popularized.
Right.
But the government report that I put in my book that came out in 2022, and I'm going to look at it real quick. It says it has information going back to like the 1800s, 1873.
Okay. All right.
And those are from selected cases of
those
abduction. So yeah, that's when they became popularized, I think, in the 40s. But they've been identifying this. Yeah, there's a lot more in here than just the abduction stories and stuff like that. I've got government reports. I've got so much other stuff in here that really helps people to understand how it all fits together. But yeah, it's been going on for. It goes back to biblical times, right? As long as it goes back to the garden, and then Nakash in the garden, and loosely translated, if I'm right, Nakash means like the shining one, or the beautiful one. So we've been dealing with these entities for as long as humans, and from the time God created Adam and Eve.
Well,
and they've been around long before that.
So what I meant was, like, because I know that they've been around, and we can see that through like hieroglyphics and stuff like that, and like the pyramids are very weird. Like there's no way, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But
there's no way humans built those, right? We can't even build a decent building.
Because I was thinking there was no account until the 40s, but if you're saying there's accounts in the 1870s, then but so because I was gonna say, it's interesting that if they started in the 40s, and then the black-eyed kids didn't start becoming a thing until like the 90s, early 90s. I think
that
I
would
think
be
the
about
first
right.
story might have been
That's
the late
about when mine
80s,
were
maybe 89 might have been the first story. Maybe, I can't remember. I know it's the 90s for sure.
Yeah, and they fit in the time frame for when my children would have been born. So that all fit. When LA said that, I'm like, oh wow, that works. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, if they started doing like the hybridization like recent in that time frame,
right,
and then they're like, oh, well, we're perfecting it, and now these kids kind of look like real kids. They just have black eyes,
right, right. Well, I think you're right in that. I think some of it dovetailed in with the Industrial Revolution, because if you look at the Industrial Revolution, where did all this come from? How did we go from candles and horse and buggies to the printing press and where we are today?
Really
us being able to do this. That did not happen because of human ingenuity. That happened because we were given all of this. The same way it happens through biblical times. This is not the first time that there has been an advanced civilization on this planet. It's just the time that we are in an advanced civilization. It gets built up, it gets advanced, and then it's taken out because the evil takes over, and things happen. Like in the days of Noah. I think that in the days of Noah, they were probably in a very, very highly advanced society at that time. And that's what they were trying to get back with the Tower of Babel and everything else. And with Noah's grandsons going and finding the pillars that had the knowledge on them and everything, those could have been touch screens. Those could have been anything. We don't know,
Good point.
because so much is lost in translation. So, and there's no evidence that it rained before then either. I think as so much changed at that point in time, and I write about that as well, there's so much to it that we don't understand because we think we just live in today, and we don't. I mean, there's so much more.
Absolutely.
There's so
I
much
agree
more.
100%.
Yeah.
But
So it's just, and when you start looking at it, it's
oh my God,
fascinating and it's confusing and it's thrilling all at
yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
So,
It's just like,
yeah. But I agree with you. I think they didn't start the hybridization program back up until they had to give us a certain amount of information and advance our society to a certain point before they
mhm,
could. Because I don't think we were hygienically in a good place, and I don't think that our health and our physical shape was good enough. And so that as they helped us advance technologically, things were able, excuse me, I'm
bless
sneezing
you.
now. We were able to create an environment where it was easier for them to be able to
Yeah.
work with us and our genome and
That's
everything
what I'm
like that.
thinking.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think it's a really good point that you'd made
Yeah.
in that. Yes.
All right, Karen. So I know that you got to get
Sneezing.
going, so I'll just ask this one more question, and then we can release you to go do whatever you got to do.
Excuse me. Gotta stop sneezing.
Bless you, bless you, bless you to all of those
Yeah.
sneezes. Oh, bless you again.
Last one. Okay. I think I've got it. Okay.
It's
Sorry about
okay.
that,
It's
everyone.
okay.
Okay.
Are
Okay.
you finding fulfillment in what you're doing currently in your life with, you got your book, you're helping these people, you're talking to people that have similar stories and everything. Are you finding fulfillment in that?
As long as I feel like I'm following God's will in my life, then I am. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, I absolutely just am finding that is such a good question. Thank you. And not at all what I expected you to ask. But yeah, the opportunity to share this information, I think it's so important. And for me, it's extremely fulfilling to be able to share something that I think is so extremely important and a message that really needs to be shared. And that's not getting out there by very many people. There are some really amazing people out there who are sharing this type of information, and I'm just blessed to be one little tiny part of that. And so in that, yes, it's extremely fulfilling, and I'm so grateful that I get to do some work, and I just pray that it is pleasing in God's sight. That's my prayer.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Karen, thanks for being here and spending this time with us. I greatly appreciate it,
Thank you.
more than you know. And I would
Oh,
definitely love to have you come back, and we can definitely get into some of those, what'd you call them?
little
Little gray
gray
lies.
lies. Little gray
Anyways,
lies.
I'd,
Yes.
I'd love to get
DM.
into those. Um,
Oh, I would love to do that
yeah,
too. Thank you. That sounds like
yeah,
fun. Yes. No, Kevin. We will definitely be lifelong friends now
yes, I
too.
agree.
So we'll have to the three of us now will have to get together, and next time you guys have a bromance, you'll have to put the sister in there too.
Will do.
So
I'll let them know.
with you and Tommy, yeah. Yeah, I think the three of us will be lifelong friends now. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you can find me. My website is KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. From there, it'll link you to L.A. Marzulli's website, which is lamarzulli.net. That is exclusively where you can find the book right now, unless you find me in person. And I will go over some of my in-person dates in a minute. You can reach out to me through my website. There is a contact me page. My email address is stolenseed@yahoo.com. Stolen Seed, just like the title of the book, at yahoo.com. You can reach out to me that way as well. I will get back to you. I do read every email myself. I may not get back to you right away. I get a lot of emails, and I do want to take the time with everyone. So please be patient if you are waiting for me. I'm so sorry if I haven't got back to you yet and you're waiting. And email me again too, because sometimes they get lost or they go into a spam file, and I do check the spam, but since I don't always get them all. So because I get a lot of spam too. So you can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Facebook under my name, Karin Wilkinson, and on Instagram at Karin Wilkinson Author. And you can find me at live events. I will be at the Hear the Watchmen conference, April 5th through 7th in Dallas, Texas. I'm not speaking. I don't have a table there. I'm just going to be there because I have a lot of friends who are going. So we are going to just get together and have lots of time together and lots of fellowship. Come find me. You will see me there. I will be there with my friend Vicky Joy Anderson and my friend Reggie. She's going to be with me too. So we're going to have just such a great time. I know, let's see, the guys from the Dig or Prometheus Lens and Dig Book podcast, Justin Odie Brown, and those guys are going to be there. Lots of amazing, too many. I'm not going to try to go through the list because I'll forget some and I'll feel bad. So I'll be there. And then in April 12th, 13th, I'll be at the First Southern Baptist Church in Guthrie, Oklahoma with L.A. Marzulli. I'll just be there helping with the table. We'll have our books and stuff there. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to sign books and talk to people and share stories. In late April, I think the 26th and 27th, we'll be at the West Palm Beach Calvary Church in Florida. In May, I'll be in Missouri. I don't have all that. I'll wait on that one. In June, I'll be at the Prophecy Watchers Conference in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Can't wait for that because I have a family member nearby, so I will be up there for a while. And then in July, I'll be at the Go Therefore Conference in Ohio, in Brookville, Ohio. So I'll have all this on my social media. That was a lot to try to follow, but just find me at one of these events so we can talk in person. And I love to meet people and talk in person. So you can also get the books there. I know that's a lot. Sorry, I'll stop there. I think going through July is probably more than enough. But yeah, it's going to be a busy year. And Kevin, I hope we end up at the same event. Maybe Go There for one of those. I think we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
I'm hoping. Yeah,
that would be great. That would be great.
So, and I might make it up to New Hampshire sometime soon. If I do, I'll let you know because I know we won't be far and we can hook up. If we go up there,
New Hampshire's a small state, so.
Oh yeah, I've lived there.
Right.
It's definitely,
and I live right on the border.
It's tall, but it's small. Oh, do you? Okay, great, cool. Well, yeah, we might be up there for a project, and I'll let you know when I know if that's happening. Because then we will definitely get together in person, and we will record a. We'll record a podcast together in person.
Yes,
the best.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Good.
All right, guys.
Fabulous.
Well, Karin, thank you for giving us your time again. I'm so excited. I was so excited to talk to you, and I'm so grateful that you've taken the time. And just for everybody out there, please check Karin out. Check out her book. It's amazing stuff. I'm definitely getting one. So yeah, you should. The links will be, I'm going to put the links in the show notes. So please check it out. Please check her out. Show her some love. But please like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. I'd greatly appreciate it. You know, if you read Karin's book too, please give it a rating and review, because that will also help her whatever on her website or wherever she's selling online.
Yeah, we're exclusively right now at lamarzulli.net. When that changes, I will let everyone know. But for now, just lamarzulli.net or at in-person events. So, and you can absolutely leave me a review. You can leave that review on L.A. Marzulli's website. He loves to hear those. Or on my website too. That's fine. I'm really appreciative of all the wonderful positive feedback. And thank you, Kevin. This has been so great tonight. I appreciate you and your amazing show. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, guys, you know the drill. Question everything and stay weird.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky. When the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day, make a wish.